Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tipped, and today we're continuing our series of episodes talking about the fantasy overview of different teams. We're going alphabetically, and today we're talking about the Carolina Hurricanes. Alright, so jumping right into their lines. So their first line should be Svechnikov, Aho, and Teravainen. Their second line should be Niederreiter, Trocheck, and Necas. Their third line should be Foegele, Stahl, and Faust. Whereas their fourth line would be Dzingel, Geekie, and McGinn. So the guys on the third and fourth lines are pretty similar in caliber, so they might move up and down from the third and fourth lines. Whereas the second line as well, Niederreiter was not that great last year, so if he continues that streak, he might move down to the third line, or even the fourth line as well. So that top power play should be Aho, Teravainen, Dougie Hamilton, Svechnikov, and then really anybody else could be on that top unit as well. Almost anyone can take that spot. It could be Dzingel, it could be Necas, it could be Trocheck, it could be Niederreiter, it could be just about anyone on this team. There's a lot of talent. So we'll just have to wait and see when training camps start who takes that spot. The second unit really depends on who takes that spot on the top unit, but it should be something like Niederreiter, Trocheck, Necas, Slavin, and Gardner. Alright guys, so let's jump right into our do not draft list. And man, was I ever a sucker last year for Nino Niederreiter. I thought he was going to have a phenomenal season in Carolina last year, and man, was I ever wrong. Niederreiter, when he was traded to Carolina 2 seasons ago, he had a phenomenal stint in Carolina. He totaled 30 points in 36 games. He was looking really good. He was playing alongside Aho and Teravainen, and that trio looked unstoppable. So when the season started last year, I thought for sure that they'd play it together again and that chemistry would just still be there. And they did open the season together, and Niederreiter did not look good at all. He played so bad that they had to demote him to the second line, where he didn't play any better. Last year, he only had 29 points in 67 games. That's one less point than he got the season prior with Carolina, and he played 31 more games. So that was such a disappointment for me. This year, I'm not expecting his numbers to get any better. He won't be playing on that top line. At best, he'll be getting second line minutes. And his shooting percentage last year was actually league average at 9.5, so his goals won't get any better. I'm staying away from Nino Niederreiter. So second on this list is Ryan Dzingel, and we know this is a guy that has some talent, right? When he played with the Senators, he had some pretty decent numbers. But when he came to Carolina, he was immediately playing on the third and fourth lines, so obviously you can't really produce as much there. If he plays on that top power play unit, I might reconsider my position on him. Depends how deadly that power play is. Right now, I'm not very high on Dzingel because I don't see him playing higher than the third line, and Carolina's third line is just okay. So the next guy on the do not draft list is Jordan Stahl, and Jordan Stahl is a decent player. There's nothing really wrong with him. It's just his numbers aren't that amazing. He only had 27 points last year. So if you're in a pool that mostly just counts goals and assists for points, what does he really have to offer? That being said, if you play in a categories league where face-off wins and hits are categories, Jordan Stahl is actually a pretty decent pickup, because Jordan Stahl had 699 face-off wins last year and 149 hits. That's actually the 8th most face-off wins out of any player in the league last year. So that's pretty good. So if you're looking for someone just to get you face-off wins and get you some hits, you know what? Jordan Stahl is not the worst player to pick up, and he'll get you a point every now and then too. Outside of categories leagues though, I absolutely would not draft Jordan Stahl. As a Habs fan, I don't really like the Leafs. And when players leave the Leafs, I love to see them do super well. So I was a little disappointed last year when Jake Gardner did not have a very good season. He only had 24 points in 68 games, which is about a point every 3 games, which is not that good. On top of that, he was a minus 24, which on a team like Carolina is really bad, because that's a really good team. I don't know how you managed to be a minus 24 on such a good team. I'm going to stay away from Jake Gardner because I don't see any way in which his numbers really get that much better. Alright, so that's it for our do not draft list. Let's jump right into our draft list. So first on this draft list is Sebastian Aho, and that should surprise nobody. The kid is just so good. He's been my favorite player in the league for quite a few years now. He's just so good on the ice. He looks so good, and playing with Teravainen and Svechnikov just made him look even better. So I'm just going to keep drafting this guy, and I'm going to keep starting this guy every single night. The one thing that might concern some people is his shooting percentage is 18.45. Yeah, that's bound to regress a little bit, but he is playing on an elite line, so they can probably maintain a shooting percentage of about 13%. And let's not forget that Teravainen's shooting percentage was actually a little low at 8.24%, so that's bound to go up. So yeah, his goals should definitely go down a little bit, but his assists should definitely increase. Next on this list is Andrei Svechnikov. And put your hand up if you saw the season that he had last year coming. Like, I thought he was going to improve, but this guy just looked leaps and bounds better than anybody could have even thought. And good for Carolina, because this is turning out to be a really, really good pick. And he's playing with Aho and Teravainen. So yeah, scoop this guy up if you can. He's got dual eligibility. Can't ask for much more than that. So next on my draft list is my must-draft player of the video, and that's Teravainen. The reason for this is his ranking right now on Yahoo Drafts. He's being drafted at 36, where Aho is being drafted 13, and Svechnikov is being drafted at 23. Now, these guys should all get just about the same amount of points, and Teravainen's goals should actually go up since his shooting percentage was a little bit low considering the elite line he plays on. Add that to the fact that he has dual eligibility for both left wing and right wing. He's a really, really good pick at around 36. Next on my draft list is Dougie Hamilton, and man was I ever surprised to see his production level last year. Dougie Hamilton in the 2 previous seasons, he was about a guy who would get a point every 2 games or so. Last year, he had 40 points in 47 games, which is almost a point per game. This is because he played on that elite top power play when he was healthy with Aho, Svechnikov, and Teravainen. Now, if he keeps this role playing on that top unit with those guys, I don't really see his numbers going down because that unit is just so dominant. You absolutely should not mind drafting Dougie Hamilton at 43 in your upcoming fantasy draft. Now, next on my draft list is Peter Mrazek, and he is the starting goaltender for this team. One thing to keep in mind, though, is James Reimer actually started 25 games last year, and Peter Mrazek tends to be a little bit injury prone. So just keep that in mind when you're drafting him in this range. It might be a little bit early for my liking, but if you need a starting goalie in this range, there are definitely worse options than Peter Mrazek. Alright, next on my draft list is Jacob Slavin, and he's pretty much cemented himself as that number 2 defenseman in Carolina. People were a little bit worried last year because Jake Gardner was joining, Sami Vatanen joined at one point, and there was a lot of really talented defensemen, but Slavin has really solidified himself as that number 2 option, and that guy on that second power play, and the guy who's going to get the second most points. He should get you just about 30-35 points, which is pretty decent for a defenseman, but nothing too crazy. Additionally, he's the guy on Carolina that blocks the most shots, so if shot blocking factors into your league, Slavin's a pretty good option. Alright, so next on the list, guys, is James Reimer, and he's really a guy to keep an eye out for because on NHL's ranking list, he's ranked a lot earlier than he is here. So he could potentially be a steal. Now, I'm not saying that for sure because he should pretty much split the game 50-50 with Mrazek, given that the schedule is probably going to be a very compressed one. But last year he looked, on average, a little bit better than Mrazek. His overall numbers were a little bit better, and he even played almost half the games in the playoffs, so the Carolina has no issue playing Reimer. I expect Reimer this year to get at the bare minimum 40% of the starts, if not more, and if he plays better, he can get up to 60-65%. Next on this list is Martin Necas, and he's a pretty decent young player. He ended up with 36 points last year in 64 games. And those numbers are pretty decent, but the thing is his shooting percentage was really, really high, and he plays on a really lackluster second line. And since Carolina acquired Trocheck, that second line has had some trouble developing chemistry. And so no, I'm not super high on Necas, but no, they didn't really get that many games to get things right, to get things clicking. So no, I don't mind drafting Necas in this range. There are probably better options, but if you want to gamble on a young guy having a little bit of a breakout season, there are much worse options. Last on the draft list, guys, is Vincent Trocheck, and only 3 seasons ago, this guy hit 75 points on the year. So this is a guy that has a lot of talent, But I mean, that year he was playing on a much more talented line with Mike Hoffman. If he can find that chemistry with Necas and Niederreiter or whoever they put on the wing, he might be a good candidate for a bounce-back season. Last but not least, guys, we're jumping into our keep an eye out for list. And these are guys that we're going to have to monitor during the season to see how they look. Because at the beginning of the season, I don't really see these guys getting a very prominent role on the team. Geeky will be playing on the third or fourth line, and Jake Bean may not even make the team. But if during the season there are some injuries on the team, then these guys suddenly might get boosted up the lineup, and then suddenly they might have some fantasy value. I'll keep you posted, but don't draft either of these guys. At best, these are guys that you can pick up on the waiver wire at some point during the season. Alright guys, thank you for watching all the way through the YouTube video. I really appreciate the support. Leave a like, subscribe, and comment on how I can make these videos even better. Until next time guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next one.